WesWes show.
I suppose a bit of somber news, just for our rugby community, with just recently the sad passing of Inga Tuigamala and Joeli Vidiri. So two great Polynesian players of yesteryear. Mate, Roger, have you got any thoughts on Inga and Joeli and just on their passing and how you remember them as players?
Oh, I think it's really easy to forget the impact that Inga had, I suppose, to the game because he was in the amateur era and before he was sort of pre-Jonah, and it wasn't. And a lot of people remember that defining moment when Jonah sort of changed the landscape. But go back a few years before Jonah, and Inga was doing exactly the same to all of his opposition, just bumping players, running around. But the amazing thing about Inga is that he had great footwork for such a big boy, and so uh, he was only 179, but about 95 kilos, close to 100, 95 to 100 kilos, he could move, and so that was, we hadn't seen a Jonah Lomu before, but then no one had really dealt with an Inga. But then, I mean, there was a lot of things. He was the first player to come out of Custom Boys to become an All Black. He was the first full Samoan as well. He was the first $1 million man, as it was remembered back in the 90s. But he was just a guy from out west who was able to play for the All Blacks, and I think there was a record that said that he was the last person to play for the All Blacks and to play against the All Blacks when he was playing for the Manu Samoa in '99 when they played at North Harbour Stadium, I believe it was. So yeah, and I think that
Is that a
will be
fact? That
something.
you put that on our chat, and you said, "Can someone fact check that?" Did you fact check that yourself, or
I didn't fact check it. I just remembered it was a trivia question. I remember it was at a function, and someone asked who was the first player to. Oh no, who was the last player to play against for and against the All Blacks, and the answer was Inga Tuigamala. So it hasn't been fact checked. I can't even find it when you look it up. There's nothing substantial that's on there. Um, but yeah, that was many years ago now when that question was put. So, but somewhere in the annals of rugby world, there should be that record there. But soon to be changed because if the All Blacks at some point play a Tonga or a Samoa, and say if the likes of Malakai Fekitoa or Charles Pieta, Steve Luatua are playing for those respective island nations in against the All Blacks at some stage, if not at the Rugby World Cup and years after that, am I not beating it anymore? But yeah, with Joeli, very sad as well. Unfortunately, Inga's situation was sudden, as much as it was for Joeli, but we all knew the medical, the health situation that poor Joeli suffered, similar to what Jonah had suffered as well. But able to live on at such a young age, though, at 48. I didn't realise how young he was. But again, the circumstances around the deaths of these great men haven't been confirmed. But just sad of the passing because the impact that they had. Joeli's challenges was that he had played for Fiji in the '95 World Cup and then had a 3-year stand down. And in that 3-year period where he was stood down in order to become eligible for the All Blacks, he played some of his finest rugby. And then once he became eligible, only to have 2 tests for the All Blacks. But, he had played a handful of games for Fiji, a handful of midweekers, I guess, for for the All Blacks as well, but 2 tests only. He has a record as well of scoring a try for and against the All Blacks. So he scored against them when he was playing. It was a game versus New Zealand A. So it was New Zealand A playing against the All Blacks team.
Nice, right? You come up with two pearls of trivia there. So someone's going to listen and be like, oh,
Someone's going to look at it and go, oh, he's faking it. He's making that up.
Yeah, no, I agree with all your sentiments there, Rog, 100%. So,
but yeah, Inga was. They say only 19 tests. I think he played, but then
19, yeah, I'm just looking up now.
But then he would have played a good 20 odd midweek games as well. So that's 39 times sort of putting that All Black jersey on. That's still quite special. That's a lot of games.
And
if
that's he didn't go league A, he could have been up there 40s, 50 maybe, might be reaching, but and then he's one of the all-time greats. Not that you'd knock him because someone who's come from where he's come from. Someone throws $1 million at you. If I would just walk away too.
There was no money. There was no money in rugby.
That's right. He was in the amateur era.
If you read his story about Inga, he was and he was never one to put his circumstances out there. But he was playing for the All Blacks, but he was living out of West Auckland, living out of his mother's garage, with his wife and newborn son. So to get ahead, he's got this massive contract that he would have been torn because he's obviously he loves being in the All Blacks, but there was no money in those early days. So, but he was good enough to just switch over and play league and use his set of skills and take up a contract and play for Wigan for over 100 games. He played for Wigan as well. So, and won multiple championships and titles and came away with a massive accolade. And we didn't really see because Sky was quite new. So we sort of lost touch with, his endeavours in the UK, but then he was a most welcome inclusion into the Manu once rugby had gone professional. Then he signed that contract with Newcastle, and then he was able to represent the Manu Samoa at the 99 World Cup. So represented New Zealand at 91 World Cup, represent the Toa Samoa at the 95 Rugby League World Cup as well, only to go on to the 99 World Cup and play with sort of a newer generation of Manu Samoa players who probably, devastated at the news of Inga, because you had the likes of To'ova Inga that was still playing, Brian Limar. So those guys, stalwarts of the Manu, who would have held Inga with utmost respect for being able to do what he did. And this is one of the books that I remember getting. It's called Blackout, and Inga's on the cover of that. But it's all about the 91 World Cup, and it's just 91 World Cup in pictures. So of every game, goes through who played who, the score, and just massive pictures. But yeah, I just had that, and but it's just real somber, just knowing that someone who's got a live wire, and everyone's seen the videos of thing over the last week, not only on the field as what he achieved on the field, but a lot of stories have come out of the person that he was outside of the games that he loved. And I think it was more about, about the people for Inga, and his interview with Murray Dika is a classic as well.
yeah. So it's a sad day when two of the legends passed away. And you talked a lot about Inga. Not much to say there. 19 tests. I thought he played more than that. Probably could have played more, like we touched on, if he didn't go to league. Even though he was very successful in league, it has to be said. 100 games for Wigan, and Wigan was like the glamour club of the 90s. They had all the money, so they were taking the NRL teams, even their best players, and beating them quite regularly in the World Club Challenge. So, yeah, Wigan was like the elite club back then. So, yeah, condolences to Inga and his family. And also Joeli, like, you touched on a really good point. For me, as a Blues fan, 96, 97, and back in 98, he was probably the best wing in the comp 3 years in a row. And when he was finally eligible, then he was sort of wasn't the player he was. I think his health might have started to take a turn from then. But you look at the influx of Fijian wingers that have come through after Joeli. So he was probably one of the originals in that regards, where we've seen Rokethoko and Sivifatu and Naholo, and just a never-ending supply of Fijian wingers. And I think if Joeli, there might have been a few before him, but he would be right up there as one of the original, blockbusting Fijian wings. And now they're that was sort of the drop in the ocean which started the whole waterfall. So, your condolences to him and his family as well.
Because I think Marika Vunimbaka was around the same time for the Crusaders, or he might have been just after. I think he might have been in that same sort of playing for the Crusaders. So I remember Marika Vunimbaka was playing when Afato So'oialo was playing. So I don't know. So maybe they are the same time frame. But Joeli was just unfortunate because when you look at how the regulations changed before the World Cup, it was okay. And you had guys that played for Manu Samoa in 93, or you had your Frank Bunters, you had your Junior Tunu'u, Bishops, your Alama Yeremia, and then a few years later they're playing for the All Blacks. So he was just missed out on that window. Then they put in that 3-year stand down rule after the Bunters and the Alamas had all come over. And then, so he was just one of those that suffered those consequences, and his best rugby was within those years. It was that semi-final against, I can't remember, he was playing for Waikato, and they were down. And similarly to what happened on the weekend with the Blues and the Hurricanes, he scored 3 or 4 tries.
Okay.
3 or 4 tries in the dying minutes. And to get Waikato to the final. They were unsuccessful in the final, but it was that semi-final game was, stood out for Waikato, where they were just... Oh, no, sorry, not Waikato. It was Counties Manukau versus Waikato.
Counties,
Yeah. But,
one of the greats. Sad news on that front. But, Rog, our weekly-ish TAB account, so we've got $137 in there.